Kingdom Hearts is overrated. That is right, I said it. The game is overrated, at least I think it is. Then again, I did ask my parents to buy it on 3 separate consoles over the course of years because I loved it so damn much, and I still do. But I don't really see many people heavily criticize the original PS2 games in the series. I've seen people criticize Kingdom Hearts 3, but I thought it was pretty good. Not as good as I remember Kingdom Hearts 2, but not bad enough to hate it. I remember playing Kingdom Hearts 1 on PS2, PS3, and now PS4, but does the game still hold up to today's standard? Hello, my name is Aries the Fool, and today I'm returning to an old series of mine after a long break from YouTube. That series is Imperfect Game. Less of a review show and more of an excuse to play my PS4 all day. In this series I kind of review games, or at least I talk about a game like a talk show or book club. Today's game for review is the lovely classic Kingdom Hearts 1 Final Mix from the PS4 port of the HD remasters of the old Kingdom Hearts games. Man, that's a mouthful. And I mean old as in the PS2 games plus that one PSP game I never finished. In fact, I don't think I have finished either the GBA or remade Chain of Memories games now that I say this. Kingdom Hearts was the love child between Disney and Square Enix, deciding to make a Final Fantasy and Disney mega crossover action JRPG. I believe this game was released back on the PS2 in 2001, but was later remastered for PS3 and finally PS4. I was born in 1998, so that means I was 3 when I first saw this game. Anyways, I grew up loving the series even if I didn't know how to play the first game, but my brothers played it. Hell, even my 3-year-old ass wanted to play the game. I only spammed the Bambi summon and kept fighting in Halloween Town on one of my brother's save games, and I had a blast. Of course, I was too young and stupid to actually play the game properly, so when I grew up I got Chain of Memories on the GBA, and even got Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2 Vanilla on my old PS2. Recently I've grown sick of not making anything to be proud of, so I decided to review games in video form again using my PS4 to record and play games for review. I chose Kingdom Hearts 1 because I got the HD collection for the PS4 and I needed to replay the game anyway since I sucked and could not only play on beginner mode. It also gave me the motivation to play my PS4, which is nice. But enough of my life story, let's get back to the review. First, let's identify the game itself. Kingdom Hearts 1 HD Final Mix is an action JRPG that's tailored more towards action than RPG and more beginner-friendly than most JRPGs. The game was made by Square Enix and Disney to be a big crossover between Final Fantasy and Disney, and as such, characters from both IPs can be found here. The story follows a young teen named Sora who, after losing his world to the big bad guys of the game, the Heartless, monsters born from the darkness in people's hearts, goes on an adventure to save worlds from darkness. Sora ends up being the chosen one wielding the Keyblade, a weapon I think resembles more a blunt club than an actual blade, but hey, that's nitpicking. The Keyblade is the only weapon able to seal the keyholes in each world to prevent them from falling to the darkness that Sora's own world has. Sora then meets up with Donald and Goofy, who become party members for most of the game's story. Now, Sora is on a quest to find his lost friends, Rico and Kairi, and help seal the keyholes in the world he travels to on the Gummy Ship. The main gameplay of Kingdom Hearts 1 is similar to action games like Devil May Cry. While you do have stats like most RPGs, they're very few and simple to understand. You have strength, defense, and magic. Strength is your physical damage, magic is your magical effectiveness, and defense is how much damage is reduced before you take a hit to your health. You also have unlockable abilities that give you new mechanics to play with, like a dodge roll or block ability, or maybe it's just a passive effect like increasing the item drop rate or letting you combo even if you miss a hit to deal the powerful finishing move more often. While the game is beginner friendly, there is one problem I have with the game's tutorial level. The dive to the heart section of the game where you learn the mechanics such as attacking, locking onto enemies, and even how to interact with boxes and barrels. This tutorial level does a good job at telling you what to do when it comes to basic mechanics, but there is one section I have a problem with, and that is the major choices that affect Sora's leveling and general build for the playthrough. The game makes you select from a sword, a wand, and a shield. You pick up one and give up one, and that decides how Sora's stats level up and when he unlocks specific abilities. I personally keep the sword and shield to take damage and deal better physical damage to enemies since I'm a part of the Press X to Win club of the Kingdom Hearts series. I gave up magic so I would mostly use Cure to heal with it anyways, but later on the magic was still pretty powerful in my playthrough, so maybe this build choice matters less in the late game. Then after making a series of choices, you talk to Final Fantasy characters to change how fast you level up for real. I just looked this up at the time of me writing the script and I still don't fully understand it, so I recommend looking up online like me to choose the leveling style you want for the playthrough. Kingdom Hearts 1 is different from most RPGs in that you can actually win any fight at level 1 because the bosses and enemies are designed to be dodged or blocked around, and some crazies out there actually beat the game at level 1 on Proud Mode, using an ability made specifically for those crazy players that limit their XP gain to 0, keeping them at level 1 for the whole game. I think this is only available on Proud Mode, or whatever difficulty it is. As for me, I struggled even on beginner mode against a fucking sand tiger boss who kept shaking me off its head while spamming enemies at me, so those crazies can have their personal hell, thank you very much, more power to them if they can manage that. While the game is mainly an action RPG, it's still an RPG, so expect tons of cutscenes that often tell you where to go to proceed through the game, so I don't recommend skipping them. Though the game does let you skip most cutscenes, for your first playthrough at least, I'd recommend paying attention to them to avoid getting lost. But knowing this game's 2-decade-old design, you'll likely still get lost at some point, so don't feel too bad if you get stuck wondering where to go. Google is your friend for these moments in Kingdom Hearts. In addition to the cutscenes, the game has you explore various worlds to fight Heartless, find treasure, and solve puzzles. While I can't really say I like the puzzles, that may be due to me having played this game several times before over the years. Once again, Google is your friend. But to even make it to these other worlds, you need the Gummy Ship. My least favorite part of the game, and likely the worst Gummy Ship gameplay of the whole Kingdom Hearts series. You don't even need to upgrade your ship, and sadly about half of the game's treasure and loot is just stupid gummy blocks you'll never fucking use. You have to deal with this stupid ship to enter all the worlds, so enjoy the slow-moving on-rail shooter sections and action RPG that didn't need it. Let's move on to the graphics and visuals of the game. While this game is over 2 decades old from the PS2 era, the game's visuals aren't half bad. Granted, you have characters with flat faces animated with only a texture swap for talking, and the few high poly faces reserved for major characters only make the flat faces more obvious. There are even some characters that just have one emotion no matter what they say, like that crab guy in Atlantica World, who always got a smile on even when the dialogue doesn't fit it. But I really enjoyed how accurate the Disney characters looked in their source material. That had to be difficult for a PS2 era game to manage it all, let alone so well. The art style of the game tends to change often due to being a crossover of many worlds, many movies and video games to be specific. The few original characters are more Final Fantasy style than Disney, which makes sense to me because it is a JRPG game. While these two art styles clash, they make sense because the game is about exploring other worlds. But it does make it harder to take seriously at times. The game's UI is okay. Not great nor bad, but just fine. It's a bit boring though, as it's just a blue RPG UI. You do get a view of your current party members walking on screen though, so there's that. It's organized so that you shouldn't have trouble managing items, weapons, magic abilities, etc. I just wish the UI had more personality to it. The world design itself is pretty good. Each world you enter has a personality and character of its own. Admittedly, I didn't pay much attention to each world's environment, but I think that shows the game's levels don't feel out of place. Except Monstro, which looks like Barney the dinosaur puked his guts out and you're swimming in it. The core gameplay loop of Kingdom Hearts 1 is simple. Explore, fight, loot, and repeat. It's a satisfying gameplay loop thanks to good enemy design and AI. Each enemy has their own role in combat and design. Some enemies copy the same archetype, like the many different colored mage enemies with different spells, and the 3 different flying Heartless with wings types. But overall, the game's enemy roster does a good job of varying the combat loop a bit, as some tactics like using the gravity spell to deal percent health damage to tanky high health enemies, like the big shield guys and the big bodies. Or even using the blizzard spell on the fire ones. I mean, that's pretty simple. This isn't a part of the script, I just added it in for my own sake. Anyways, let's move on. Another thing that makes the core combat loop so good is the simple but effective controls of Sora. You simply press X to swing the Keyblade and Sora locks onto the nearest enemy and starts hitting them. However, this auto-locking sometimes gets in the way, like how I had trouble hitting the black fruit in the deep jungle world because it didn't have a lock-on the fruit. Thankfully, this rarely got in my way aside from that one example. More often than not, the lock-on system makes the gameplay much easier, especially against enemies that are invisible for some fucking reason. You also have a defensive option in the form of a dodge roll, which you get from Goofy at the end of the tutorial section of the game. Yes, I consider the first visit to Traverse Town a tutorial. You even have a jump that can be used to platform and jump around attacks and enemies in combat. The triangle button is reserved for unique actions or attacks unlocked as abilities. Since I played a strength-focused build, I didn't really use these, so the button is mostly limited to interacting with the environments or items in the level rather than actually using special attacks. I guess I'm just a simpleton or something. The game also has more unique mechanics depending on the world you're in. Some are hit or miss, like the stupid on-rails sliding stuff you do in Deep Jungle. In Atlantica, you're a merman, so you swim up and down using the circle and square buttons, which I like a bit better. It's a bit complicated at first, but the Atlantica world has a good tutorial on using the two movement buttons you get. Neverland brings us back as a flying mechanic, which is very much the same thing, just without the water, so that happens. There is also a synthesis system, which is pretty much a crafting system for items. It's hard to know what items make what though, since they're all abstract crap like lucid stones or fire gems or some shit. It's really only there for 100% completion, which is something I only ever tried with Kingdom Hearts 2 as a kid, and even then I couldn't fully do it. It also unlocks the ultimate Keyblade, but by the time you're in any position to craft it, you're likely both skilled and high enough level to beat the game anyways. I remember making the Ultima in Kingdom Hearts 2, but my memories are fogged up since that was years ago. I don't recommend completing this game 100%. It's a great game to replay, don't get me wrong, but the 100% stuff is ridiculous. But that's not to say items are pointless, at least in any mode besides beginner. You see, I did my playthrough of Kingdom Hearts 1 on beginner because I suck at video games, and I needed to beat the game to see the whole experience, at least for a basic review of the game. Now, beginner mode gives you a ribbon that resists some elemental damage types and has decent defense that outclasses half of the unlockable equipment items you earn from bosses, and they give you an XP increasing item that makes you level up faster, so naturally I kept only those two items for most of the game up to the point of reaching the final level, having ignored all the earned equipment until the very last level. But I'm sure this is due to me playing on casual baby mode rather than standard mode, so I wouldn't be too hard on Kingdom Hearts 1 for this. While my PS4 would only record at 30 FPS, the PS4 version played at a constant 60 FPS. This should be expected since this is a 2-decade-old video game. The load times are also pretty fast too, so there's a smooth experience to be had here. Now, Kingdom Hearts is pretty infamous for their convoluted story that makes little if any sense, but I'd like to think Kingdom Hearts 1 kept it pretty reasonable. While fantasy elements like the Heartless, Dark vs. Light, and magic exist, I'd say the main story was pretty simple to understand. I think this game's story follows the classic hero's journey plot. While I'm not super familiar with the hero's journey, from what little I do know of it, Kingdom Hearts 1 follows it pretty closely. The story truly begins after the dream sequence, with Sora waking up on Destiny Island and building a raft with his two best friends Riku and Kairi in the hope of seeing other worlds. A bit on the nose with the theme of exploring other worlds, but it's cute, so I like it. As Sora lives his day-to-day life on the island, he encounters a brown-robe-wearing man in a dark cave who at this point in the story makes little of any sense, at least to me. He says some random garbage that I don't even remember because it was so dumb, and then he disappears. One night, a storm appears, and Sora, fearing for the raft, leaves his room and sails to the island on a boat. Why they didn't just use those boats instead of making a raft is beyond me, but that's just nitpicking. The boats of both Riku and Kairi were there, telling Sora that his friends were also on Destiny Island. What's more, this wasn't a normal storm. Dark creatures and energy appeared around the island, and Sora had to run as his wooden sword didn't hurt these creatures. He sees Riku standing across a bridge to where he waits. When Sora talks to him, he claims the door is open and that they're headed to another world, and that he's not afraid of the darkness. Said darkness engulfs him and he disappears. Sora tries to reach out to grab his friend, but the darkness gets in the way. Right before the darkness consumes Sora too, he magically gains the Keyblade and is now able to fight the darkness. He then looks for Kairi, who was also still on the island in the same cave where the brown-robed man spoke to him. Kairi was there, but she looked weak and gets blown by a strange force. As Sora reaches out to grab her, she disappears as well. Sora is then forced out of the cave to find his world mostly gone, and a huge shadow-like thing fights him. After said fight ends, Sora gets sucked into a black hole and he is taken to a place called Traverse Town, and there his journey to find his friends begins. As Sora's story happens, Donald, in another world entirely, discovers his friend King Mickey was gone, and that he left a note saying to follow the key. He and Goofy both travel in their gummy ship to find both the king and this key. They end up in Traverse Town and bump into Sora, who wields the key they are searching for. Now, I'm not going to retell the whole game's story, but what you need to know is this. Sora, Donald, and Goofy join forces to save the worlds from the Heartless and find King Mickey, Riku, and Kairi. Along the way, they seal the keyholes found in each world to prevent those worlds from being consumed by the Heartless and clash with the villains who control the Heartless. The story is no doubt aimed at children, but it's pretty entertaining if you're willing to overlook the cheesy good and evil stuff and the power of friendship saving the day. The game does try to tell a serious story when it can, and during the late game I found myself immersed in the story even if characters like Donald Duck look out of place in any serious story. The story likes to use abstract concepts like the nature of hearts, light and darkness. It's not afraid to get weird with its concepts and themes either. I think characters used by Disney should go without saying to be of quality. You don't become an animation giant by making bad characters. The Final Fantasy characters aren't the major focus in this story, so they're pretty static and boring to me. As for the game's original characters, Sora and Riku are pretty good. Sure, Sora is an audience self-insert with a heart of gold, and Riku is the Vegeta to Sora's Goku, who was tricked into becoming an enemy of Sora in the mid to late half of the game's story, but I like both characters despite their tropes. The only character I think needs a rewrite is Kairi. Her whole purpose in this game is to be fought over by the two main characters and be a damsel in distress. She serves a purpose as a living MacGuffin and not much else. Which is a shame because I want Sora to have a love interest that's actually engaging and not flat like Kairi. I don't even hate Kairi either, I just think she needs to be written to be a bit better. But hey, that's another timeline or something. I don't think there is ever a bad music track or sound effect in the game. The music already starts on a high note with a remixed version of Simple and Clean that bops. I don't really know the soundtrack by name, but I definitely remember the best ones. Like the dive to the heart music at the beginning of the game's Dream tutorial, and the battle music from Traverse Town, and really most combat music in Kingdom Hearts 1 is about the same quality. Yoko Shimomura did an awesome job composing these tracks. Hopefully I said that name right. I'm pretty terrible at reading Japanese despite being a weeaboo. The English dub for this game is actually very good. Characters sound like actual people and convey emotions just right without being too cheesy with melodrama. Then you have the voices for the Disney characters. Now I don't really know my Disney VAs, but I recognize the big ones. Like Hades, Genie, and yes, even that dumb crab guy whose name still escapes me. The sound effects are standard but also iconic. From the famous selection sounds to simply opening a chest, the game does have a nice audio design going for it. Not very noticeable outside of the selection sounds and the Keyblade swings. As for replay value, I'd say Kingdom Hearts has some replay value. If I wasn't going to play through the rest of the PS2 games on my PS4, I'd maybe try and beat it on standard mode, but honestly I don't think I'm going to replay this game anytime soon. But for hardcore fans of the game, I'm sure the replays will be worthwhile. I believe Kingdom Hearts works best at providing a lighthearted adventure story while also providing a simple but addicting combat loop with enough depth to please professional gamers, while being simple enough to please novices like myself. What it does poorly is provide meaningful side content that is actually enjoyable. I dislike the gummy ship missions, the puzzles and minigames are kinda stupid, and the game's old school design means sometimes you get stuck and have to pick up a guide just to continue. But that is just my take on Kingdom Hearts 1. Personally, when I played Kingdom Hearts 1 again, I was pretty relaxed and immersed in the story, despite already knowing what happened on my previous playthroughs. I had fun reliving the story, and even though I felt like the beginner mode was a bit too easy, I still had fun. I didn't have any major expectations for the games. I just wanted to relive old memories of the game again. I think while Kingdom Hearts 1 might be overrated, I still liked the game and feel it's a classic. I would definitely recommend this game to people who loved action RPGs or simply, like me, simply love a good crossover game. Well, I guess this ends the video. I hope to make more videos like this one. I still have the other KH games on my PS4, so I have a lot of work to do for my reviews. But I'm having fun and I feel like what I'm doing actually matters for once, so I wish you all goodbye. This has been Aries the Fool, and this has been Imperfect Game, and thanks for watching. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe for more Imperfect Game reviews, and may your heart be your guiding key.